Welcome back to the Eternal Labs podcast, and we have Geoff Woods on the show today, and this show was fantastic. If you want to grow professionally and personally, and you are interested in performing at your peak, like this is a must-listen podcast. Geoff is the owner of The One Thing, and he shares in this podcast a whole bunch of different practical tools and resources and tips that are just awesome to reflect on, big questions to answer. So if you listen to this, I actually encourage you to listen with a pen and a piece of paper, because it was just like, you really want to take some notes down. It was really quite fantastic. And if you do get any value out of this podcast, please like, share, or subscribe. If you guys leave a review in Apple Podcasts, that helps us out amazingly. So thank you for that. And also, we're very interested in hearing your thoughts. Please leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube, or send us a message. We'd love to hear what you think about this podcast, because that conversation that we could have could really spark something great. So please let us know. And also, this podcast is obviously brought to you by Eternal Labs and the products that we sell. You can head to eternallabs.com.au to see some of those products. Our products are focused on making you live as long as possible, as healthy as possible, performing at your peak. And if you're a business owner or entrepreneur and you just really want to optimize yourself and be super focused, we've got all of the products to do that. We've got all the antioxidant products like glutathione and quercetin. We also have apigenin, which is great for sleep and anti-aging. We have resveratrol for blood flow, vitamin B1, lion's mane for cognition. We've got all these different amazing products. And you can head to the website and punch in the code Corey, Corey, for 10% off. So I hope you guys really enjoy this podcast. It's a great listen. Please listen to the podcast the whole way through. Just a little note that Geoff, we did come into some little bit of sound difficulties and qualities where he sort of goes like, it just makes a couple little noises. However, Geoff is really good at reiterating himself, and if you listen through, you get to the goods every single time. So thank you so much for listening, guys, and we hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we'll see you inside, and if not, we'll see you in the next one. G'day, Geoff. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Corey, my pleasure. Good to see you, man.
So what have you been working on? I just saw your studio out the back, and it is insane. What have you been working on recently, mate?
One of the coolest things that we do every year is we facilitate it's the One Thing couples goal setting retreat. Yeah. And this was an idea that was started by my partner. He and his wife for like the last 15 years, every year would get out of their environment and actually set their goals together, which makes sense, but is counterintuitive because most people don't do it. They set goals themselves, but they don't do life by themselves. And yet they wonder why they're not growing together with the people that matter most. You put those two together, it makes a lot of sense. So we were just gearing up for that, and I was shooting a whole bunch of videos. So we've got this big professional studio here, which shot a lot of videos today, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. Step us through. I'd like to hear a little bit about that as well, and sort of like what you actually do for the goal setting for couples. It's actually quite interesting.
Absolutely. You want me to go there now?
Yes, please.
So in business, we understand no one succeeds alone. When we build our companies, it's not like you're going to do everything. You're going to build a team. But we know these proven principles in our business for success, but people don't apply them to their personal lives. And so for us, it's about, in a company, you have a long-term vision for the organization that informs your goals for the year. You put a business plan in place. You have a weekly or monthly rhythm for checking in on your goals. We're just doing the exact same thing for our personal lives with the people that matter most. So we pull, probably 70% of the people who will attend are couples, and then we have 30% that are individuals, but we help them identify their core values so they understand why they make the decisions they make. So it's backed by a bigger purpose. They cast a someday vision for their life, like 10, 20 years from now, which people might think, I have no clue what that looks like. I didn't either until I was taught to ask the right questions, which we teach. And once you have a someday vision, it's setting 5-year and 1-year goals becomes a lot easier. And all of a sudden, if I'm saying these are my goals for the year, there's a bigger purpose behind them. It's not just stuff I want to achieve this year. These are the things I've got to knock down this year in order to have a life by design, a life of no regret. And that then helps you identify, okay, here's what I got to do every month for the next 12 months to stay on track with the people that matter most.
Yeah. And then they can hold you accountable to that as well.
If they give you permission. I made the mistake of holding my wife accountable to her goals and figured out that you need permission.
Yeah, I like that. That's really cool. So what's keeping you motivated at the moment? What's motivating you to just get out there and crush it?
I think it's because I wake up every day and I actually live my purpose.
Nice.
We know every team feels like they have too much to do and not enough time. I personally have felt that. And my entire career prior to co-founding this company, I was really busy, but I wasn't actually productive. And the thing that just drives me is I was handed a really simple system from my partners on a silver platter and said, hey, go bring this to the world. And so we actually help people start to view their time like their most valuable resource. They start investing it instead of spending it. They go from being busy to being productive, and they achieve extraordinary things professionally and personally.
Wow. How do you go from busy to being productive? It's just like such a common thing that I find so many people are always struggling with.
Being busy is just doing a lot of things. Being productive is doing the most important things. So the first thing you have to have is clarity on what matters. I mean, I remember waking up, seeing all the things that were on my plate and telling myself the story that I had to get it all done. And Corey, it was a lie, because the truth is, like, you get this as a coach. You don't achieve extraordinary success by doing everything. You achieve it by doing the most important things. Problem is, depending on if you work in a company, whether you're starting up your own company, sometimes the things that are kicking and screaming the loudest are not the most important things. So it's about figuring out what is most important, making sure that your calendar actually reflects your goals, and you start knocking the dominoes down that are going to deliver the biggest impact.
Yeah, which is crazy. And I think like people can also get like sometimes a little bit tricked because they're like, well, how do I figure out like what's actually important? Like, what do I actually do? How do I do that? So I'm sure you probably got some systems to figure
Oh
that
yeah.
out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How do you do? Is there anything you'd like to share?
Where do you want me to start?
I don't know, whatever's coming up like on the front of your mind.
I think first and foremost, we have to recognize something. If you're sitting here asking, how do I identify what's most important? If you're asking that question so that someone else will give you the answer, you're already doomed to fail.
Yeah.
This is a journey of learning to ask questions and search for the answers. And unfortunately, I don't know about you, Corey, but growing up, my educational experience, I was graded on the ability to have the answer. But that's not how it works in the real world. See, I can ask the same question. How do I find out what matters most? And one way I can ask that is the mindset of a victim. Well, how do I figure out what matters most? Like waiting for somebody to tell me, not the right answer. Or here's the other question. How do I figure out what matters most to me? And searching for the answer. Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
So the thing that I have learned is we have an opportunity to ask ourselves bigger questions that we do not know the answer to, and give ourselves the space to search. Because I guarantee if I challenged every single one of you listening to this to grab a pen and a piece of paper and ask the question, how might I get clarity on what matters most to me? And I challenged you to write down 3 to 5 ways that you could go about doing it. I guarantee you could come up with 3 to 5 ways. But the difference is you're not asking the question waiting for somebody else to give you the answer. You're asking it expecting yourself to search, identify answers, and then you can prioritize and execute.
Yeah. I love that. So good. It's like so simple, but so impactful and so important at the same time. And you wouldn't even think of it. Mostly you just.
Well, that's the one thing is the surprisingly simple truth behind extraordinary results. Nothing that we're going to say here today is complex. And frankly, not a lot of this is new. This is just turning common sense into common application.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a good phrase. So have you got any, can you tell us about a time where they've been working with someone or a crowd or something like that, and someone have just had like some awesome results and they've come to you and just been like, this has been the best thing ever. I'd love to hear about one of those stories.
Yeah. The one that's coming top of mind. We work with a lot of companies, and they all come to us for similar reasons. They have too much to do, not enough time. There's so many competing priorities. Priorities are constantly changing. They want to be achieving greater results, but they're working long, they're working hard, they're not, yet they feel like there's more that they should be able to accomplish. And oftentimes people are working long and hard in their professional lives at the expense of their personal lives. One of the companies we work with is one of the major logistics companies in the world. And I did a presentation for 150 of their top execs. And when I shared this idea of the one thing, the idea that you can do one thing, and if you knock that domino down, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. Doesn't mean that you only do one thing. It's about prioritizing the most important thing first. This exec thought about his organization, and he got this visual in his mind, and it was this image of a freeway in China. Here, I can pull this up because this is video as well.
Yeah, I'll let you
there is a
screen.
freeway in China, and it is 50 lanes wide. And every single day, traffic backs up for miles.
Well,
leading
so
up
if
to this
anyone who's
toll
just
booth.
listening, there is like this. It's like 20 lanes. And
Yeah,
there is
it's
like
literally a 50 lane
50
highway.
lane, holy.
And this is an aerial shot from a helicopter looking down on gridlock traffic backed up for miles across 50 lanes leading up to a toll booth. So imagine that.
Yeah.
And this leader realized this is what his organization was. Every single car represented another thing that they had to do. And he found himself asking, what is our one thing? What's the one thing that if we just did that first, everything else would be easier or unnecessary? And he realized it was this car in the back of the traffic jam. And what he realized was that priority had been on their list, Corey, for 6 years. For 6 years, they had known about this, and it had just been inching forward because every day they were doing all the other things. And for the first time, he asked a really powerful question. How might we create a fast lane? How might we truly prioritize this initiative so we just blast this one through the toll booth? Corey, once this leader declared that this was the number one priority, once he challenged all his people to every day walk into work, whether at home or in the office, and ask, what's one thing I can do today to help contribute toward this one thing? And then I'll do everything else. Guess how long it took them to accomplish this priority when it had been sitting there for 6 years?
Oh, tell me.
2 weeks.
Yeah, nice.
2 weeks. And that wasn't the most amazing part. The pandemic hit. This is one of the major logistics companies. They played a major role in the distribution of vaccines. Every country they fly to changed their regulations. And had they not learned how to create a fast lane, how to prioritize something that mattered and blast it through, it would have halted their airline.
Yeah, that would have.
What would have happened if this company could not have delivered vaccines globally?
Oh man, there's mayhem, absolute chaos.
So this is why this matters, is every day we wake up and there are all these things that we could know. There's all these things we could have. There's all these things we could do. And that's the challenge of life, because we cannot know it all. We cannot have it all, and we cannot do it all. We have to start making choices. We have to make choices about what do we want? And based on that, how are we going to go about getting it? What are those dominoes that if we just line them up and whack away at the first one first, everything else would become easier or unnecessary?
Well, I love that. So what would you say to people if they just had like their own business, if they had like their own business, their online business, or they had a few employees, and they're really starting to make a little bit of headway, and they now have to start dealing with a few stresses, and they really want to start like crushing life. What would you encourage those guys to really start focusing on, or even learning?
Well, I'll speak to personal experience. So prior to co-founding this company, I was in medical device sales, which was a great job. I woke up every day. I ran through hospitals. I sold a device that saved lives. but deep down, I was lacking fulfillment. I wanted to be a business owner, but I had a great job, golden handcuffs on. Two things happened that set me on my entrepreneurial journey. First, a colleague of mine had a stroke when he was 35. My wife and I had just had a child, just bought a house. Wife became a stay-at-home mom. And now as the sole income provider, I'm going, holy smokes, if what happened to my colleague happened to me, what happens to my family? And Corey, the next week, my company changed my commission structure, and overnight I lost 40% of my income. That was the pain that I needed to start my entrepreneurial journey. So I'm holding down a full-time job. I'm not sleeping because we got a new baby, and I'm starting a business on the side. And here's what I realized. I had a vision for what this could become. I had a big vision, but the mistake that a lot of people make is they have this vision and then they feel like they have to go and do everything. And I took a counterintuitive approach, which I would later find out was very aligned with the principles of the one thing. I would think big, but start by going small and trusting the dominoes will fall. I just figured out a tiny 2-inch domino that no ifs, no ands, no buts. Every day, if I just knock that down over time, would hopefully lead to building an extraordinary business. And for me, that lead domino was every day, no matter what, no matter how tired I was, I had to put in 10 minutes on the business. And this mattered because I was working a full-time job. Then I'm investing time with my wife, my new baby daughter. And then when it's time to go to bed, I literally remember walking upstairs about to go to bed, exhausted, me like, I've got to put the 10 minutes in. Here's why that mattered. It was a foundation for just doing the most important thing. So for you, if you've already started your business, you're an entrepreneur, the business is starting to take off. You're not talking about working 10 minutes. That's what might help you if you're trying to build the side hustle. For you, the mistake is looking at everything and telling yourself that it all matters equally. Ooh. Corey, did you ever have a corporate job?
Yes, I sure did.
Did you ever get promoted?
Yes, I sure did.
Did you ever get promoted because you were the best email checker in your organization?
Absolutely not.
Did you ever get promoted because you were the best meeting attender? Like your notes sparkled?
Absolutely not. No way.
People major in the minor things. If you are starting up a business, you are chief everything officer. The mistake is to view it like it all matters equally. What you need to do is you need to identify what are the 20% priorities that if I just did those things would drive 80% of my results. And if you're starting up a business, I would challenge you to ask if it has something to do with driving revenue, because revenue cures all problems at the beginning. So what's one thing you can do every day that would drive revenue? Put it on your calendar, protect that time. That allows you to earn the right to start building the team who can take all the other things off your plate.
I love that. There's so much wisdom in there. I love how it's like, oh man, it's just like so many tools and so much real good information. And then again, it's just like, oh, it's just so simple, but you have to hear it and like go over that so many times to actually let it sink in before you actually take action on it.
Well, how many of the people listening to this are starting online businesses?
There'd be quite a few that have either, I wouldn't say online businesses. I'd say a few have online businesses, like quite a few, and then quite a few actually have physical businesses as well.
Well, it's easy. Then I'll leave it generic. It's easy to see all the things that you need to do, but you really got to start looking at every single thing and asking the question, if I do this, am I spending my time or am I investing it? If I do this activity, is that an expense or is it an investment? One brings you a return. One compounds, one does not.
That just comes back to priorities again.
Look at that.
Look at that. We're learning on the podcast. So what are some lessons that you have learned recently? Some lessons that have come your way that you've been like, man, I'm so happy that I've learned this, or reflection, or relearned something. That would be awesome to share.
I'm learning every day. So what's the biggest challenge you think these people have when it comes to managing their time? And I'll share a lesson that applies to that. What's their biggest challenge right now?
People who are trying to manage time, more time.
Well, or go more broad. What are the challenge? What are the things that are keeping these people up at night?
All the stuff that they got to get done. Or
Okay. Here's what I'll say. I am very much on my own path of mastery with this idea of the one thing, which means mastery is not a destination you arrive at. In fact, the moment you stop viewing it as the destination and start to view mastery as a journey you go down, it starts to feel more achievable and attainable. And the reason I share that is, even though I'm on this side of the mic talking about get clarity on your priorities, make sure your calendar reflects your priorities and not just a bunch of stuff. I'm constantly in different seasons of life where I have to pause, reflect, and ask, how am I doing? I co-founded this company 6 years ago, and I was literally employee number one. I have my two co-founding partners, but they brought me on. They co-authored the one thing, but they brought me on to start the company. And originally it was me. I was the guy making the sales. I was the guy writing the emails. I was the guy getting behind camera. I was the guy doing the podcast. And that got the business off and running. And then I earned the right to hire a content person. Then I earned the right to hire an operations person. Fast forward to scale, we're a pretty big company with legitimate overhead. And what I've realized is that while I've built a team around me so that I can stay within my 20% priorities, the 20% that delivers the 80%, it's time to go to the next level. Right now, my 20% is casting a vision for the business, driving growth for the company, being an ambassador of the brand, getting behind a microphone, and working with corporations. But the truth is, I'm hitting a ceiling of achievement. Because in order for us to get to the next level, the business cannot rely on me to do those things. So now it's about, how do I hire people to do the things that truly I'm the best at in this company? But I'm doing them because I have to do them, not because I want to do them. Do you get the difference?
yeah, I get the difference for sure.
Because if I had a team that could make it rain, then I could choose to make it rain or not. If I had a robust team that could deliver inside of corporations, then I could choose to work with companies or not. So at this point, my job is to make myself replaceable.
Yeah. I love that. And how do you go? And obviously with that, you have to focus a lot of things on leadership. You'd have to go through and, be a really good leader to, inspire people, make sure that they're getting everything done. How do you go about that?
Jim Rohn says you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Mm-hmm. That's the quote that I heard when I was in medical sales that set me on my entrepreneurial journey, because I realized I had 5 amazing friends, but I didn't have any amazing mentors. It's the same in business. Your level of success in business will be dependent on the 5 people you hire. And the thing that I have learned from my partners is you're really only one person away. Oprah Winfrey wasn't Oprah Winfrey until she met Jeffrey Jacobs, her attorney. There are so many examples, if you go through history, of the greats. Walt Disney wasn't Walt Disney until he realized he had his brother Roy Disney, who could become the integrator to his vision. For me, it started by realizing, okay, we need to level up. But I asked a question, which was, who am I missing? And I was missing somebody who could come in and actually take over running the company. I literally needed to fire myself from running this company to free me up to grow it. And so I brought on a VP of operations. And I just said, if I pick the right person here, if they're the right person and they can then be in charge of building the team, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. And that's exactly what he's done. He has taken over running the company. He's now in charge of building the team. He's in charge of the org chart. He's in charge of hiring. And it's freed me up to go vision, growth, ambassador, corporate. But now that we're getting to this point, I look to Geoff and say, great man, his name. I say, all right, Geoff, how do I get to fire myself from these jobs? Who are we missing? So now I tell him it's his job to go create the org chart. It's his job to write the job descriptions. It's his job to get those jobs posted. It's his job to go and find those people, which he's done. And now those people are sitting down and pulling everything out of my head, documenting what I do so that it can be systemized and scaled. So it can be done without me.
Yeah, that is some absolute gold just there. I really love that. What is some, just for like, because I love how obviously with all the stuff that you're doing and like, and the leadership that you're doing and with the people, I'm guessing that you guys go through a lot of and do a lot of the work that you do in the one thing with each other, because obviously it works. So, and obviously you're going to be getting clear on values and doing all of those different things there. So you really understand each other in a team dynamic and a personal dynamic in order to, increase team productivity and all those different things. What are some practical tools and tips for just, I'm just thinking for anyone who's listening, if they're like, oh, that's fantastic, and I'd really love to learn that, but there's something that like, I'd love to do something right now. I've got like a pen and a paper, or is there something where I can go in order to do some sort of exercise to get myself clear, to sort out my values? Have you got anything in terms of that you'd like to share?
Oh my gosh, man, which way do you want to start? First, write down the website. It's theonething.com. And that's with then the number one thing.com. Explore the website because we've got resources that can guide you on this. I would start. I'm going to walk you through a framework called goal setting to the now. I remember I was sitting down with my partner, Jay, and he asked me a question. He said, Geoff, do you know how billionaires set goals?
Oh, I
said, no, but I sat down and grabbed a pen and paper as fast as you could possibly imagine.
Yeah,
I was ready to take notes. And this is not hyperbole. Our other business partner is an actual billionaire. And he has a counterintuitive way that he sets goals that has made him who he has become. Most people, if we imagined our lives, if I challenged you to imagine your life, how you got here today, you'd think, well, I woke up this morning, and before that, I discovered this podcast, and before that, I took the job that I'm in, and before that, I went to school here. And when you imagine your life looking backwards, you really see it in a straight line. You don't think about what would have happened if I went to that school instead? What would have happened if I took that job? What would have happened if I hadn't walked into the bar that night and met my significant other, if that's where you met your significant other? We just see the straight line happened. But when we look forward to set our goals, that's not what we all things that we can do. And when we set our goals looking forward, we don't truly know the difference between a priority and a distraction. Here's what I mean by that. Corey, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, you faded out for 1 second, but you're back
now. Corey, let's say you and I were hopping on a plane together. We're going to fly someplace cool. Where are we going?
Let's go to Bali.
Bali. Okay, great. We take off, and all of a sudden a gust of wind blows the plane just 2 degrees off course. If the plane did not correct from where you are to Bali, what are the odds that we would actually arrive in Bali?
Oh, there's no way.
No way. No way.
Yeah.
But that's what happens with our goals. When people set their goals looking forward, they could see something that looks really attractive to them, but might be just 2 degrees off where they need to be over the course of their life. But because it's just over the course of the year, they cannot see the deviation. And what we've learned from our partner is we follow a process called goal setting to the now. You don't set your goals looking forward. You set them looking backwards. You time travel and you fast forward in your life and imagine someday from now, you can decide when that is. For me, it's 20 years, which, by the way, I had no clue how to set goals 20 years from now until I learned how to ask the right questions. But I imagine, what would an extraordinary life look like in 20 years? And you can break that down into categories. What would extraordinary spirituality look like? What would extraordinary physical health look like? I'd look like you, dude. What would extraordinary personal life look like? What about extraordinary relationships, extraordinary job, business, finances? If you give yourself the space to search for the answers and do not accept the answer, I don't know, I guarantee you can arrive at a vision. It's not absolute clarity. That's not what it's about. It's about and when vision, you can then imagine looking backwards on your life. Well, where would I be in 5 years to feel like I'm on track for that someday? Again, you got to search for that answer. But if you search, I promise you will find it. And once you have that, you can look back again. Okay, well, if this is where I need to be in 5 years, where do I need to be in the next year to be on track for my 5? All of a sudden, it's like, oh, I got to do these things in the next year. And all of a sudden, it's not everything that you could do. You see, these are the things I've got to focus on in the next 12 months in order to be on track for my 5 years, in order to be on track for my someday. And once you know that one, the one, your goals, okay, well, what do you have to do in the next 30 days to be on track? Based on that, what do you have to do in the next week? Based on that, what does your calendar need to look like? All of a sudden, you learn how to turn a vision into action. You learn how to go from being busy to being productive so that you achieve extraordinary results professionally and personally.
Yeah, and I love that you put professionally and personally in there together. That was just, that was great. And I love how you explain that as well. What do you think, like, in terms of you, because you would have done obviously a lot of inner work. What are some of the best like inner work that you've done to develop yourself personally? It's like, oh God, here we go.
Three things. One, growth is my number one core value. Mm-hmm. So I'm always reading. I'm always listening to something. I can't tell you the last time I listened to the radio. I can't tell you the last time I listened to the news, because I remember somebody telling me, be careful of what you let enter your mind because it shapes how you think. And so I shut all that out. I only allow things to enter my mind that help me grow in a positive way, not just professionally, but also personally. So one, my dad handed me Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was junior high.
That's great.
The amount of investment that I have made just in terms of books is insane. And I remember even being as a kid, like in high school, being on a cruise, sitting by the pool with my parents, reading How to Win Friends and Influence People, reading Think, Grow Rich. And I was super frustrated because it's like, they're telling me all these things. They're telling me to just do this, but I wanted the outcome immediately. But what I didn't realize is the foundation that I was setting by putting that type of stuff into my mind as a child. That's number one, investing in your education. 2, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. When my income was slashed, when my colleague had a stroke, I heard that quote and realized I had 5 amazing friends but 0 amazing mentors. And that became my one thing, to surround myself with people who are where I wanted to be. It also meant to take stock of who I was currently spending my time with and realizing who was contributing toward my goals and who was contaminating them. And I literally cut people out of my life if they were not wind in my sails. Ooh. If they were resistance to me achieving my goals, if they challenged, if they were not encouraging me, I cut them out of my life because I realized they were stealing my future. You can hear my passion about this. I am fired up about it today.
Commitment over contamination, man. That is just an absolute quote belter. I'd take that one. Stealing.
Books, people. And then the final one, and this has been the most recent. I got clear on what my core values were. Corey, you ever had a time in your life where your mind was telling you to do one thing, but your heart was pulling you in a different direction?
That would have happened. Probably happens every single day.
We've all experienced those moments where our mind is saying, do this, but they're just, for some reason, our heart's pulling us in this different direction. That's our values. Every single one of us has 3 core values that are like our compass. Just like if you pulled out a real compass, it will automatically point to true north. The problem is most of us don't know what our values really are. And something that we did as a part of our business is we researched this and we curated 140 different core values. We created a deck of cards, each had a different value on it. And this is one of the experiences that we facilitated, where you really sit down with this deck and you start creating 2 piles, a yes pile and a no pile. Does this value matter to me? Yes or no? And you filter it down, and then you put the no pile to the side, you take the yes pile, and you do it again until you get down to the top 3 core values. And what I realized is your values are not what you want them to be. It's what they are. Example, people who have kids feel like family should be one of their core values. But the test is, if we followed you around with a camera, would your actions say family is one of your top core values? Or is by living a different set of values, does that help you become a better family person? The moment I got clarity on what my core values were, Corey, which are growth, recognition, and impact, it became a compass for every decision. Every opportunity that comes my way, I ask the question, how does this line up with me growing? How does this line up with feeling recognized? How does this line up with making an impact? And if it doesn't line up with those things, I don't do it. For my business partner, Jay, it's family, impact, and abundance. If it's not a 9 out of 10 on family, impact, and abundance, he says no. For my wife, order, safety, and experience. The things that bring her most joy are when she has order in her life, when everybody feels safe and she's having an amazing experience. And when she is not happy, it's because something is out of order. She feels like her kids are unsafe, or she's not actually having a great experience. Our happiness and our sadness is oftentimes determined by if we are living in or out of alignment with our values. And until we get clarity on them, it's real tough.
I love that, because that's also so stoic as well. Like a lot of the old school stoic stuff from Plato and Socrates. Obviously, They always talk about core values and the importance of actually finding your values. So I find that super important, man. Thanks for sharing. I love the exercise with the cards with all the different values.
Dude, it's so powerful. I flew out to one of the major Army bases here in the States a few weeks ago, and I did a training for a bunch of Green Berets and Army Rangers. So like, these are special forces operators, and every single one of them we gave a deck of cards to.
Nice.
And we had them do the exercise. And I've got pictures of these guys doing this value, and suddenly realizing all the moments in their life when they were in alignment with their values, all the times in their life when they've been out of alignment with their values, and asking, based on that, what the heck do I need to do differently? Powerful.
Yeah, I bet. And what I find is like a common experience for that is that when people do get clear in their values, and as you were mentioning beforehand, is people, when they do get clear, they think, I should have this as a value, and I should, and then they have to process all the guilt and really accept themselves. And then they're like, whoa, this is great.
Totally true. Totally true. You nailed it.
Yeah, dude, I love that. That's absolutely fantastic. What do you think, like for you, do you think are some of the biggest obstacles that you've had to overcome?
Give me an area of life.
This is really good, because I'm not too sure exactly which one I want to go for. I would say the ones that have demanded your best to overcome.
And I'm going to go family.
Awesome.
Business is my sport. You know, some people love watching sports, like that's their entertainment. Business is my sport.
I love that, man. I just want to pause you right there. Business is my sport. Oh, I love that. That is fantastic. Yeah.
You know, I remember I studied accounting in college, and I remember doing an internship with one of the big CPA firms, and every day, work day ended at 5 o'clock. At like 4:45, I was in a 3-point dance, like ready to sprint out the door as fast as humanly possible. I hated going to work, and I dreaded Mondays. So I can really relate to people who feel that way. I don't feel that way doing what I'm doing. I can't wait till Monday. I love what I do every day. I skip at the thought of going to work, like just freaking delightful, because I love what I do.
Blessed.
And then, and it's almost like driving a race car at top speed. Such a thrill. And for me personally, transitioning from work to family time, especially when it means literally just walking out of my home office and into the next room, is like going from top speed in a race car to getting on a tugboat. It's just a different speed. And what has really demanded the most out of me is being accountable to recognizing where I was not showing up as my best as a husband and as a father, and being willing to ask the tough questions of what actually matters to me. Like on my deathbed, am I really going to care about what my net was, or, you know, how big we grew the business? No. I'm going to care about the moments that were shared with the people that matter and whether or not I made an impact in this world. It was a challenge to ask, what do I have to do differently? Who's the person I have to become? How do I become the best husband possible? How do I become the best father possible? Because I'm so wired to focus on the business that I'm not as wired to put that same focus and purposefulness on my development as a husband or a father. One, that was a tough pill to swallow. And two, I had to do it. And just like the path of mastery, I'm still going down it. And the reason I share this with you all is, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably an ambitious professional, whether you are an employee inside an organization with high aspirations, whether you want to start your own thing, whether you have started your own thing. But the reason I share this with you is I want to challenge you. Fast forward to the end of your life. What's going to matter? And what are the things that if you didn't focus on, you truly have regret? There's no amount of professional success that would fill a void if I didn't have a great relationship with my life partner. There's no business success that would fill the void if I had a distant relationship with my children. So how do I prioritize the small actions that I need to take today to make sure that that future becomes my reality?
What were they? I've got the questions in my head. I'm so encapsulated right now.
they change all the time. Yeah. But one was a matter of this is when I used to actually drive to an office. When I would walk in, I'd have to pull my cell phone out and just put it on the counter. Because if it was on me, I would keep checking it. So just like, that's a lead domino. Like if I knock that domino down, it made being present at home easier and necessary. One was refusing to check email before work or after work. Like I literally, as a habit, no longer check email outside of work hours, not even tempted. Lately, it was about, because I don't have a transition to an office anymore, it's about finding that transition. So like before I walk out my home office door, I stop and I actually visualize walking in to the next room, visualizing my kids coming up to me wanting to play, visualizing myself saying yes, and truly being present. It comes down to those moments when, you want to talk about eating some humble pie. I was doing the dishes one night. My daughter came up to me and said, "Daddy, can you play with me?" And I said, "Not right now, honey. Daddy has to finish the dishes." And she asked me, "Daddy, are the dishes your one thing or am I?"
Oh, God damn.
She was 7 at the time.
Smart 7-year-old.
Even about 120 days ago, she said to me, "Dad, your business is more important to you than we are."
Sorry, what was
and
that?
I
You just cut out for a second then.
And she said, "Well, I watch you." Yeah. Even about 120 days ago, she said to me, "Daddy, your business is more important to you than we are." And I looked at her and like that hit me hard because I've been working on being more present at home. And I asked her, "Honey, why do you think that?" And she said, "Well, it's simple. I watch you. You spend more time at work than you do with us." And the thing that I realized, Corey, is I have this belief that communication is the way it's received, not the way it's intended. Meaning as the communicator, I have to own the reception. I have to own the result. And in that moment, I realized, okay, it's time to be accountable. You have to own the result. As much work as you have done, you have a long way to go because her perception is her reality. And she actually believes business is more important than her. So what can I do to change that?
Yeah, that's tough. Then you have to spend, remove yourself from the business. Circle moment.
Well, and the thing I've learned, a kid spells love, Time. It's actually not about the quantity, it's about the quality. But that was for me to be accountable and say, she's not getting the quality that she needs from me. So what can I do differently about that? When we took a vacation last week, and it was truly being present. At nighttime, it's truly being present and talking to her, reading to her, being present with her. Like, I'm traveling right now. She FaceTimed me last night. We talked for 20 minutes. I read to her in bed. She like held the camera up and flipped it around, and I read to her. So like, prioritizing these moments, that's what matters.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that. Obviously, we're talking about business, talking about being like a better version of yourself. And then obviously family gets weaved into there, because obviously if you're working hard or whatever you're doing, that's like the other half of your business, which is literally going to directly impact you and how well you can do things. So I love that you brought that up and shared the stories in there. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, man, I'll leave it with that. If there's anything else you'd love to say or share with the audience, please go through. But before that, where can people find you, and how can they reach out or start to get started on the one thing?
Sure. Yeah, well, you're already listening to a podcast, so just click on the search button, type in The One Thing, you'll find us. The book is also The One Thing. Both the podcast and the book is The One Thing, the ONETHING. The website's with the number one, theonething.com with the number one. Head on over to the website. You can learn about the different types of trainings that we have to begin your journey. And if you want to find me personally, just go to Google and type in Geoff Woods. That's Geoff. I am the number one ranked Geoff Woods in the world. So you'll find my LinkedIn there.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And if you would just like to leave everyone, I think before we leave this podcast, with just like one powerful question that you think's really good, because I know you've already asked a bunch, and there's so much in here that I can't wait to go back and take notes on. So if there was one thing that one question you'd like to ask.
I'm going to give an answer I've never given before.
Awesome.
Friend of mine, Keith Cunningham, said, hell on earth would be meeting the person you could have become. My question for you is, fast forward to the end of your life and imagine that reality. Meeting the best version of yourself that you could have become. What would that look like? Search for that answer. What would that version of you actually look like? And based on that, what's one thing, not two things, not three things, one thing you can do to start to become more of that version of yourself?
There you have it, guys. Thanks for coming on to the show, Geoff.
My pleasure, Corey. Thanks.